Hello class, this is Tony Gianfrido with NETI105, and this video is to go over PacketTracer. So in previous videos, the syllabus video and the Cisco Net Academy video, this is a video on PacketTracer. And so what PacketTracer is it's a software application you have to download to your computer, and it's going to emulate a lab environment for us on your computer. So all of the networking devices that we're going to be configuring and learning about this semester with Cisco are all going to be virtualized into this software called PacketTracer. And we'll be able to connect devices together in this software application. We'll be able to configure each of these devices to do what we want them to do. We'll be able to do some really cool things with testing traffic flows and seeing those traffic flows and verifying network connectivity across different network topologies that are built in PacketTracer. And so you have to have a Windows, Linux, or iOS device to run these applications. Any other devices are unsupported, and if you don't have access to these three types of devices to install this software, you're going to need to go to the school and use the computer labs to do your work for these assignments. So basically, there's a link on the home page of the Net Academy site for student resources. If you click on that, there's a link here for PacketTracer resources. And that's going to bring you to this page where you can download the PacketTracer application. So once you've downloaded the application and you run it and install it, it's going to bring you to this login screen to log in with your Networking Academy credentials. And so I'm going to log in with my credentials. And it loads up this is the work area of PacketTracer. And so down here on the bottom left, you can see that we have different types of devices down here, and we're just going to build, and this is used to build a network, and we're going to learn about networks and more about networks and what it is comprised of in the coming weeks. But the purpose of PacketTracer is so that you can build networking topologies on your computer and test them in almost like a real-world environment. So, for example, here, if we click on networking devices, underneath we have routers, switches, hubs, wireless devices, security devices, and WAN emulation. Don't worry if you don't know what some of these things are. But basically, for instance, if you click on routers, what shows here to the right are a number of Cisco routers, different models, different versions, and so forth that you can select from. I'm just going to pick 2901 Cisco router and drag it onto my screen. And now I have a router on my workplace. If I click on that, it loads up with the device configuration details. And so what this physical tab shows are all of the modules inside the router. So there's different hardware that you can plug into these routers, and we can actually customize what actually gets plugged in. So for instance, there's this gigabit Ethernet port we can plug in. I can't attach it while the power is on, so it's kind of hard to see, but, and I don't know if I could zoom in, but there's a little power button right here. It also emulates like whether or not the device is actually powered on, and like you can control whether it's powered on or off by clicking this little button here, which is the power button on the image. So like this represents the front of the router. This represents the back of the router, and I can't install modules into this without turning off the router. So it's almost emulating like a real-life scenario. So I'm going to take this Ethernet port and I'm going to install it as a module into my router. And so these are just different types of modules you can plug into your router. Most times you don't need to add modules at all, but as you go throughout the semester and you learn more about Ethernet ports and network interfaces and things of this nature, these will become more familiar to you, and you'll understand more about what these are and when these will be needed. And you'll be able to go through your PacketTracer assignments and utilize those. So that's what this physical tab shows you. It's literally a physical representation of the device, and this is also where you can add modularized functionality to it based on what's needed. So in this case we just added more ports to it. This config tab goes over some generalized configuration settings. We really don't mess with this tab. If you go to the CLI tab though, this is where you're going to be doing most of your work. So what this does is it represents and emulates a connection that you've made in using what's called a console into this particular router. So once I'm consoled in, I have access to what's referred to as the command line of this router, and this is how I can configure the router to do what I want it to do. And so what's going to happen is your lab instruction sheet will typically give you instructions on what to do in the CLI of a router in a particular like lab scenario. So it'll give you instructions on how to access different modes, and then you can configure interfaces, you can display data. There's all sorts of commands you're going to learn this semester on how to configure a Cisco router or switch. And you're going to learn what a router and switch is. You're going to learn what a network is. You're going to learn how to connect these types of devices, to the internet, and so forth. So what I've done here is I've placed a second 2901 router on the workplace, on the work section, and so now I have two routers here. And in order for me to connect these two routers in PacketTracer, I click on this lightning bolt button. And this lightning bolt connector is actually kind of cool because it will automatically detect what type of interface is connected or is installed on the router, and then you could just drag and drop and connect it to the other router, and it'll automatically detect what type of cable is needed. If you want to be specific with the cable you select in PacketTracer, that's what these other options are here. As you can see, if I hover over in the middle bottom part there, it says this is a console connection, this blue curved line. This black line is a copper straight through. This is a copper crossover. This is a fiber connection. This is a phone connection, coaxial, serial DCE, serial DTE, octal, IoT custom cable, and a USB cable. You don't necessarily have to worry about all the different cabling types right now, but I'm just showing you this to demonstrate to you how you can connect two devices in PacketTracer to each other. So as you can see, when I select the lightning bolt, it'll automatically choose the connection type for me. If my arrow is now changed to like a cable connector, so pretend I'm plugging this cable into this router. If I click on the router, now you can see that I have a cable connected to it, and now I need to connect this router to something else on the other end. In this case, I'm going to connect it to this guy over here. And so now I've made a cable connection between these two devices. And so it'll even give you sometimes an option on which port you want to plug into. And because it automatically selected, if you look at the type of line, you can see this is a copper crossover cable that was automatically selected for me that I used to connect these two routers together. So this just is a very, very basic example of how to connect two devices to a router. You can also do the same thing for switches. If I choose this 2960 switch, I could bring in here. And then what I can do is I can connect this switch to the router. And if you see the type that was selected, this looks like a copper straight through cable. And you're going to learn all about these things. You're going to learn, what a switch is, why it needs to be connected to a router, when it needs to be used. You're going to learn about the different interface types. You're going to learn about different cabling types. And PacketTracer is going to help you with that learning. And so there's some other things you could select here, such as end devices. Like if I want to connect a PC or a laptop to this switch, I could place those onto the workstation. That's this end devices tab here, and then this end devices option on the bottom left, and then I could see all my, I have like a phone. I'll put phone over here, and then I'll put a printer over here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect them all together with the lightning bolt. So there's my computers connected there. Here's my laptop, it's connected to the switch there. I've already got my switch connected to my router. My router is going to go to this other router. And now this router is connected to my printer. And it's also, because of the ports on this router, I'm not able to connect my phone. So I'm going to turn this router off. I'm going to add some Ethernet ports to it. I'm going to turn it back on, close out of that, and now I should be, it doesn't like that. Let's see. Maybe I added the wrong types. Oh, that's already there. Yeah, it should have let me connect the phone. I'm not sure why it didn't. But anyway, here we go. Let's see if that works. Yeah, it doesn't like it for some reason. Oh, this is an analog phone, that's why. So that requires something else. So I can highlight this if I want to remove it, and then just press the delete button on my keyboard, and it'll give me an option. Do you want to delete this item? I say yes. I think there's another way you can delete things. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, if you just go and you highlight stuff. Oh, I'm in the delete mode still. Undo. If you go and highlight stuff and hit delete, you see now my arrow is turned into an X. That means I'm in delete mode. And so if I want to delete other things, all I got to do is click on them. So I'm going to undo those things. And I hit escape on my keyboard to get out of delete mode. Let's see. And that's pretty much it. I mean, for the most part, we're just going to be building very simple networks such as this, and connecting these guys. Say for instance, this section over here to the left is Site 1 in Atlanta. This section over here is Site 2 in Boston, and because these routers are connected to each other, that's how these two sites can communicate to each other. Just to kind of give you an idea of, in general, very high level, what a network is, which is, I think, one of the first topics you go over in week 1 in the chapter 0. In chapter 1 is you're learning about networks and what they are and what they're used for. And that'll kind of coincide with the PacketTracer activities and showing you how networks work, what they're used for, and particularly with the Cisco products. This is an emulator designed for Cisco devices. So this is a Cisco router and this is a Cisco switch. And Cisco makes the devices that are used in networks to connect, computers with each other, or connect you to the internet, for example. So they're just one of many vendors, but they're like the largest vendor, most popular one, has the most documentation, highly reliable vendor. So so there's that, and so that's kind of a very brief introduction to PacketTracer. If you have any questions or if you run into any problems, let me know. But what's great about PacketTracer is when you do these labs, you're going to be given a PacketTracer file. Oh, and I'm glad we're gotten on this topic. Is once you get done making changes to your networking topology, the topology you're going to be given is already going to be pre-established. So when you open up your PacketTracer assignment, there's already going to be a network there that you can use to do the lab sheet with. So you just follow the instructions on the lab sheet, do exactly what it says. When you're finished, you're going to go to this file menu and you're going to save as. Don't do save as PKZ, and don't do save as common cartridge. Save as. And you're going to, oh no, this is a PKT file. So actually, you're just going to click save. So what's going to happen here is you're going to download a PKA file, and you're going to work in that PKA file, and after you've made your changes to that PKA file, you're just going to save those changes to that PKA file. So you're just going to save it. And that's going to preserve the PKA file extension. And so once you've saved your changes to your file, you just go back into Net Academy and upload that file along with your lab sheet that has the PDF edited with all the answers on it. And that's it. That's it for PacketTracer. That's just a brief introduction to show you how it works and how to access devices in it. There's some other cool stuff here, like these PCs that I've added. Just like the router, like this is a picture of the front of a computer. And here, if I click on the desktop link, I can configure what IP address is on the computer. This is going to be very important throughout the semester, is knowing where to input IP information for a computer. And then the terminal option, the command prompt is what you can use to emulate, like a command line from your Windows machine in PacketTracer. So there's a lot of cool things you can do in PacketTracer. IP configuration and terminal, or excuse me, command prompt are going to be two big ones. And then, yeah, and that's pretty much it for PCs and laptops. And then routers and switches, they're all going to be pretty much the same. You'll use the physical tab to add any modules if needed. Most of the time you won't need to. And then you'll go to the CLI tab and actually learn how to do the commands to configure those devices. If you have any questions about PacketTracer, let me know. But other than that, the lab sheets should guide you step by step, and just follow along in the lab sheets and you'll be fine. Good luck, and on to the next video.